So, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you've managed to have a good lunch and are ready to stay with us for the next hour, because we have a fascinating panel with us today with some really cutting-edge startups, really thinking out of the box. So we're here to talk about providing an innovation impulse to the nuclear industry. So the buzzword is innovation in this panel discussion. Now, you will have a possibility to ask questions via an application at the end. I've been told to tell you that. So let's get straight down to this panel discussion. Let me just introduce you to our speakers today. So first of all, we have the CEO of Orano, Philippe Nora. Give him a round of applause. I'm sure you all know, but let me just tell you very briefly that Orano is a 4 billion euro company. It has 16,000 people in it, and it's focusing on offering products and services to customers right across the uranium cycle, from mining, dismantling, conversion, enrichment, recycling, logistics, and engineering. So the whole thing. It is number 3 worldwide in all its activities, and 55% of its business is in France. And also, perhaps you didn't know this, but outside France. I'm sorry, I said inside, did I? Outside France, I take that back. And also, it's on the forefront of research in the nuclear medicine to develop new treatments against cancer. So maybe we'll be hearing about that too. So welcome. Also with us is the Director of Strategy for Ariane Group, Philippe Lugarini. Let's give him a hand. So Ariane Group, space industry group, it's owned equally by Airbus and Safran. It houses the entire scope of civil and military launcher activities, has 9,000 highly skilled people in France and Germany, and its roots go all the way back 70 years, to the kind of the beginning of the space industry. Next is the CEO of Navia, Jérôme Rigaud. Interesting. So Navia is a pioneer and a specialist in the autonomous vehicle market that you've been hearing about, I'm sure, recently. It assists cities and private sites around the world in improving their transport with autonomous, driverless, and electric solutions. So welcome. And then we have the CEO of Diota, Lionel Jousmet. So it's a Diota software editor. It's got in-depth expertise and another very fashionable word here, augmented reality. Diota is very much positioned about what we call the 4.0 industry. So the idea is to make digital, which is already massively present in engineering centers, also at the heart of human operators out in the field. And last but not least, if I haven't forgotten everyone, which I don't think I have, is the Marketing and Communication Director of AddUp, Jean-Luc Laval. So AddUp, created by 2 industrial groups, Fives and Michelin, in 2016. It's a joint venture, and it's bringing customers its unique experience in developing and marketing machines and industrial production lines using metal additive manufacturing technology, generally known as metal 3D printing, which is really revolutionizing many areas. So we'll talk about that. Now, thank you for your patience introducing everybody. So when I was introduced to this panel, my first question to myself, really, Philippe, was why are we bringing all these people who don't have a lot to do with the nuclear industry, it seems to me, together to talk about innovation? What's the rationale?
Because in fact, thanks to Samuel about that, because in fact when we are talking innovation, we are talking innovation beyond frontiers of the industry. And I'll just give an example from yesterday. Yesterday, in front of 100 people, we were together with the head of a Finnish safety authority. And he was trying to explain what means digital for a safety authority, nuclear safety authority. And he mentioned, just imagine a cop on the street looking at autonomous vehicles. What can he do? It's just the whole chain of command that is changing. And more, what we will have to regulate is software. But where can we find the thinking about that? Not necessarily inside the nuclear industry. We can find it in the space, in the automotive industry, in this particular example. So I answered him, Well, it's good. Tomorrow I will be meeting with experts in this field. So that's the whole idea of today's drive in innovation in the nuclear industry, is that it is open and open to other sectors. Not only open to other sectors, which are perfectly here, but also to different sizes of companies. Because a startup has a different criterion for success. A startup finds a problem, a solution to that problem, generally outside of what exists, and its success is measured by finding investors and later making the profitable business. Whereas, let's say, legacy industries, such as ours, nuclear, such as the automobile or chemical industry or bioindustry, we are, and it is our first priority, we are driven by operational excellence, serving our customers, and making the next quarter's financial results. So we are driving our companies by let's make the same stuff better, faster, cheaper, not necessarily finding solutions outside of where we are. Driving profitability through processes, so we are really process-oriented, and sometimes innovation does not go too well with too rigid processes. So yes, we will continue to strive for operational excellence, but we need to have the ability to have a balance with innovation, which is open to different sizes, open to different sectors. So that's where we stand, and that's where we proposed to have a more diverse roundtable today than usual.
Thank you. So that explains it very well. Now, you mentioned you're a legacy industry, I think it's fair to say, nuclear, and we've seen in many industries a huge disruption of late, mainly, digital revolution. So my question is, you haven't had to face that much disruption for a long time. Now, have we come to the point where that's no longer the case?
Yeah, indeed. I'm certain that this is no longer the case. If we do not create disruption, it will come from outside. Somehow, economically, a number of competing energy sources have brought disruption, and we leave disruption everywhere. In the way we order a pizza, everything is disrupted. So the idea is let's have the industry create its own disruption to be competitive against others. We are so constrained. We have economical constraints, regulatory constraints, we have social acceptance constraints. All these takes, we can bring answers by being ourselves agile and disruptive. And let's not wait for somebody else to disrupt us.
Very briefly, before I get on to our other guests, I mean, the nuclear industry is not the first advanced technology sector to face, to have to transform itself, really. I mean, I'm thinking of, for example, the aviation.
Yep, aviation has moved from economies of scale, you're right, to having bricks of technologies that they can apply to different products. So economy of multiples against economies of scale. That has been, for example, one example to follow from the aeronautics industry. And indeed, the aircraft industries has things in common. We have long development times, we have long programs. So the programs are long, but it's bringing short-term innovation within long-term program. The good thing is that long-term programs can bring cash flow. And while these long-term programs do happen, we can finance more disruptive innovation. And another lesson before giving the floor to the space industry after the aircraft, another example of industries which has been disrupted is the medical industry. And they have learned, big pharmas have learned to work with smaller companies, coming back to the example of different sizes. So typically, that's two examples of things we can learn from other industries before giving the floor to the space one.
Yes, so let's move now on to Philippe Lugurini of Ariane Group. Now, we've been hearing in the press, certainly I have, about a little company that's causing a little bit of disruption to the space industry, whose name I'm allowed to mention is SpaceX. Philippe, how has a legacy player like you, Ariane Group, Ariane Group's been around since 2016, but obviously you come from a long-standing group. How do you deal with this?
Sure. We are a legacy player, definitely. But a legacy player that has been, as you mentioned, disrupted. I remember when the smart guy popped up a few years ago and warned us, in 5 years from now, you're all dead. Thankfully, he was wrong, so I'm still alive. But he actually triggered a serious disruption. If you're interested in space and rockets, you may have heard a story put like a fairy tale. A brilliant engineer coming from the digital industry. Digital is key for a fairy tale. Starting from scratch, a rocket company, managing it like a startup. Startup is also key in the fairy tale. Bringing in a lot of innovation, and at the end of the day, inventing the most powerful and cheapest rocket ever made, and so opening a new era for space applications. This is the fairy tale. The actual story had nothing to do with digital. Sorry for saying that, but had nothing to do with digital, and had nothing to do with startups, except if you call a startup a company that draws most of its revenues, and I think that next year it will be 100% of its revenues from the federal budget. And more important for our topic today, it has nothing or very few to do with technology. Have they very wisely decided to go on with well-proven technologies already matched by others, among them the legacy players, us, NASA, and others. The real innovation with SpaceX was actually in the engineering and management principles they have deployed, more than on the technology in the product. And also it's worth saying that as for innovation, most was done by the customers, let's say NASA and the Air Force, Department of Defense at large, and also regulatory bodies like the FAA, Federal Aviation Authority. They really reshaped everything in the ecosystem, from the regulatory framework, the technical standards, the procurement policies, and eventually they made SpaceX success possible. So for us now, as a legacy player, and I would say also being inspired by SpaceX, innovation is very much about the methods and tools to shorten our development cycle, to be quick on the market with the right products. To some extent, and like SpaceX, part of it is with a very, I'd say, in the engineering and management approach of our innovation. But this, I would say also, as we used to do in the past, before we became a legacy player, but combined with some innovative tools to speed up and secure the development. For example, this will not be a scoop, but ALM. ALM is just something wonderful, because you can go very quickly from an idea to a mock-up, a prototype, a test, and redo the entire cycle if needed.
We'll be going back to that, Philippe. We'll be going back to that. But I mean, I think one of the things you're suggesting is, so they didn't reinvent the wheel, but you have to have the right ecosystem. You have to have an innovation ecosystem in place. So my question, before we move on very quickly to you, Philippe, is, you know, it's fundamental to create that innovation ecosystem before you can really move forward.
Indeed, first externally, maybe also internally. Of course, at least it was a stake at Orano. Of course, in all your companies, it never happens, but at Orano, it happens that we do work in silos. It's, again, only our company. We are probably the only legacy company in the world working like that.
Sure.
But it happened that we had it. So first thing is make sure that internally the ecosystem is put in place and that the people have the right mindset to both deliver and be open to innovation. With one anecdote, somebody in Orano was looking for an expertise on a special material, asking for help outside, and through his research, he found that the best expert was in fact in the same building as he was and was an Orano employee. So fighting against silos is something that we needed to do to create the right mindset.
And how have you created, have you implemented that climate, this skill set? Is it, for example, allowing people to feel that they can fail in some ways, create this kind of mentality?
Yeah, we started from one basic rule, which is innovation is done outside, so we don't want to write the book number 1010 about innovation. So we took the best practices outside, and in the digital, there's something which is called fail fast, learn how to fail fast. Of course, in nuclear, talking about fail fast is a kind of tricky game. So we said, no, what is important is to learn from the mistakes. So we call it test and learn fast. And we will have awards, for example. We use basic tools. We create a dedicated central team to help the culture change. We create monthly forums about innovation. We create digital networks about innovation. We have also awards for men and women and their contribution. And amongst these awards, we also have the award for the best failed idea. One of the criteria is that the idea, if it's good at the start but not good after some time, it needs to be stopped very fast. That's something that we learned from outside innovation.
Great. Well, let's move outside of nuclear. You mentioned, Philippe, that startups are part of the ecosystem. So let's get the views from our panels about creating that climate for innovation. So Navia's Jérôme Rigaud, I turn to you. How do you innovate to get on the market fast? Because that's key, isn't it?
Thank you very much, Samuel. I'm probably the startup guy in this panel. So contrary to my colleagues, we don't have legacy. We don't have organization to deal with. But we deal and we behave and we develop into a designed to be or supposed to be a gigantic market, which is mobility solution market for the future. Navia creates, design, manufacture, and sell autonomous vehicles worldwide. Our business is competing as a startup, is competing with giants in the automotive industry as well as in the software industry. So for us, question of speed, one way to stay ahead of the market and to stay the front runner in this market has been a real choice, industrial choice, to integrate all the value chain of the creation, manufacturing of an autonomous vehicle. That is to say, internally, we have built a company which is now 300 headcount and which is growing every month, but who design software, manufacture vehicle, and sell vehicle worldwide. Our choice has been, again, to do everything internally, to be fast, to learn, again, from each of our deployment, wherever they are, Europe, Far East, Australia, US, and learn every day to build the answer to your COP, Philippe. How does a COP have to behave in front of an autonomous vehicle? So the only answer to this question has been, again, to do it internally on our own, which has been a very peculiar choice in this market and a very strong belief from the company.
Thank you, Jérôme. Now, I'm going to move over to you, Jean-Luc Laval. So we're talking about AddUp here. We're talking, as we said, additive manufacturing. And something that's very dear to your heart, which is a co-design culture. Can you explain?
Yes. To understand how co-design helps to innovate at AddUp, first I'm going to say a few words about additive manufacturing. Thanks to the 3D printing technology, you can produce very complex parts infeasible by conventional manufacturing. The main gains, well known, are complexity, customization, performance optimization, flow optimization, weight saving, reducing number of components, etc. Lots of things. But 3D printing is not as simple as traditional conventional printer. You know, you don't have just to press the button and the sheet is going out. You need also to respect some rules, some conception rules, to be able to print properly and have a good quality of the part. So let's take an example with the nuclear field. If you want to design a part, a new part, taking into account all the possibilities of the additive manufacturing, you need to bring many competences, of course, with at least two kinds of skills. On one hand, you need, of course, people or nuclear specialists, of course, and on the other hand, the metal 3D printing experts. And thanks to this cross-fertilization, of skills, you can create real innovative systems. And let's take a real case of co-design with AddUp. For example, we work with Carmat. I'm sure here you know who is Carmat. Carmat is a French company. They are creating a heart, a totally artificial heart. And we are co-designing with them a big part in titanium. And thanks to this, to the additive manufacturing, we are reducing the number of components, and then we have a better securing the device's assembly, and customizing also the anatomical interfaces with the patient. So you know you have a heart, you have tubes, okay, and in and out, and then you can customize it with the patient. So that's key, really. The additive manufacturing is key in that case. And to make the co-design possible, we conducted creative events. We could say co-design events, but internally we say creative, based on tried and tested methods from Michelin. With 15 participants, about roughly 15 participants, during the creating event, we can generate about 150 good ideas, operational ideas, and about 10 scenarios. And Michelin is using this method has been using this method for about 10 years. And every year they are using it about 100 or up to 200 times. So
it's a kind of brainstorming, really.
Yes, but organized brainstorming, yeah. And it takes about 2 days for each topic, for each subject. And it generates hundreds of patents. So it works, really. So what is key to have a successful co-design in this kind of event? We have 3 things, 3 points. First, we have to identify the problem clearly. It's simple, but it's not. The problem is very difficult to identify very clearly. And also the context, it's very important. Second, you have to identify the right skills and the profiles needed to solve the problem. So who are the good participants? And third, you need one creative event for each technological stop. So for example, for Carmat, we made probably about 10 creative events to solve all the different problems they had. Okay? So in that kind of exercise, when you want to innovate, co-design is very powerful, especially with a new technology like 3D printing.
And so you are doing this with Carmat? It's a joint.
With Carmat,
it's
yes.
A joint.
It's a joint. I mean, it's a co-design, really.
The whole way is put together.
Yeah,
I get you.
Yeah.
Great.
The metal part. The metal part, because we are talking about the metal part. Yeah.
Absolutely. And am I right to say that this is the first fully autonomous mechanical heart
Yes,
in
exactly.
history, isn't it?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that's the only one in the world.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's truly, truly innovative.
Yeah.
Now, moving on, obviously this climate of innovation generally facilitates breaking existing paradigms and new business models are created. That's when you have something truly innovative, that often happens. Lionel Joussemet, can you tell us more about that? Because you're in the heart of this with the digital
Yes,
stuff.
of course. Indeed, this climate of innovation brings a lot of changes, especially concerning collaboration and innovation paradigms inside industrial groups. So in industry until today, there's a real gap between the engineering spaces where product and associated industrial processes are imagined, simulated, designed, and on the other side, the operational field, where the factories, maintenance sites, where women and men every day perform all these industrial processes for product manufacturing, control, maintenance, and so on. So these innovations, like those we bring, change the way people work together. In that, they make digital data as a common and universal language that bridges this gap. On the one hand, the digital data is materialized thanks to technologies like augmented reality directly in the field workers' hands, allowing them be more efficient. And in the other hand, this augmented operator, as we may call him, is now enabled to share his experience, to capture, to comment, to criticize the reality of these processes he has to perform every day. So this operator in turn produces valuable data, helping back office engineers be more efficient as well. So these two areas that were totally disconnected in the future now get to work and communicate together using the same language. And this is actually a new way to create the performance, a kind of culture of co-building performance together inside the company. Beyond this, this opportunity of optimized collaboration, we can observe another significant evolution, but this time in the innovation paradigm itself. Because all this digital-based solution that we propose on the shop floor, the factories, delete a large part of the no value-added tasks operators perform. So these workers no longer see these innovations as something that interferes with their know-how, but as something that can help them to share, their experience and rethink uses. So the operator becomes a co-producer of the innovation. So all that creates a virtuous cycle of innovation, a kind of co-innovation mindset culture. And for me, this is definitely a new paradigm.
So everyone is part of this kind of system, this holistic system, and then can feed into it to
Yes, exactly. Two ways.
Yeah, great.
2 ways.
Thank you for that. So now we're going to turn now to talk about Navia once again. Obviously, the introduction of autonomous vehicles has been a lot of talk about that of late. So how have you approached breaking barriers and new global markets? Because this is a kind of Wild West out there, isn't it?
It looks like
new frontiers,
and it is new frontier definitely. There are many barriers to be broken. The first one maybe is the mental barrier, and my colleague talked about it earlier. It's a question of passion, sharing passion into technology, into innovation, into entrepreneurship. And the key question is to share this passion in a growing company, very fast-growing company, to have everyone on board and, again, move at the speed of light. So the first mental barrier is just to be sure and to make everything which is needed to make it happen and break this first mental barrier, which might be yourself. especially as a gray hair senior executive, I know that it's you can be a barrier, and you have to overcome again the way you used to work. That's first. Second is the industrial barrier. As I said earlier, we made a choice to integrate ourselves the full value chain of creating an autonomous vehicle, but we still have to cooperate with many players to buy components, parts of the vehicles, but also to invent what was not available on the marketplace. And as we cannot do everything by ourselves, we had to cooperate and also cooperate with, for instance, LiDAR manufacturers such as Velodyne, the eyes of the vehicle, so to speak. As there is no driver on board, you still need to have eyes, and these eyes are these leaders that Velodyne, for instance, is making, and we cooperate very closely with them. So the second industrial barrier is to find a way to cooperate with those big guys. We had the chance also to have on board, as among our shareholders, companies such as Valeo, who is a tier 1 manufacturer, and Keolis, who is a worldwide transport operator, who also bring a lot of expertise to us, and this is real value to this type of partnership. And the last barrier is, of course, the legal of regulation barrier, because obviously we're starting from a blank page. There is no regulation really right now. So obviously and hopefully it's evolving very fast. The question is how you cooperate with authorities in order to, again, make the experiment possible, to demonstrate, again, autonomous vehicles are safe, that they deliver a good service, that they really able to fight or to reduce congestion and pollution in the cities. But you really have to demonstrate in each country with public authorities that, again, you bring something of value to the market.
But, you know, it's not just theoretical. You are actually providing solutions already. And you do have one example in the nuclear sector, which is, I thought, very interesting.
Yes, we have deployed, which is not more than an experiment, because we are in operation right now in a nuclear plant in Japan, in Fukushima, in cooperation with TEPCO, and also our partners in Japan with the SB Drive Group and Mitsui Group. And we are very proud of having convinced and sold numerous shuttles to TEPCO in order for TEPCO to commute their employees on a day-to-day basis. So it's a 5 days a week operation with shuttle who really transport employees from the gate of the plant to the various business sectors within this location. It's a pass of 6 kilometers, and there is no driver. I mean, the shuttle works by itself and on this pass, and the employee travels within our shuttle every day.
So that's actually up and running. Thank you very much for those observations. So I'm turned to AddUp again. Jean-Luc Laval, how has additive manufacturing helped explore new markets and make it easier to access them? Because it's such a flexible technology.
To understand how additive manufacturing can help to explore new markets, I need to go back to how it works, additive manufacturing. The basic principle of the additive manufacturing is to build a physical object layer by layer, selectively to meet functional specification on the basis of a digital object, of course. So you need computer at the beginning. This approach triggers a paradigm shift. The design of your part is not anymore constrained by conventional manufacturing process like molding, milling, machining. You can design the shape of your part only by thinking function. And what function do I need to solve my problem? In other words, in additive manufacturing, material can be placed exclusively, selectively where it accomplishes a function. It provides a high degree of design freedom. So we can resume that we have complexity for free. The more the part will be complex, the more additive manufacturing will be interesting. But for mass production, if you want to copy an existing part designed for conventional manufacturing, you waste your time and probably your money. The real limit of additive manufacturing is, in fact, is more the human thought. You have to think different. That's the problem, in fact. And you can innovate with, by creating new function, new complex shapes to release the full potential of 3D printing. Thanks to these new possibilities, you can reach new markets, new clients by providing add value absolutely unseen before. And I'm going to give you an example from Michelin. Michelin is using, as you know, they are making tires, of course, producing tires, but they are using additive manufacturing to make their molds. And they are making very complex parts, sipes, the sipes to create the sculpture of the tire. Of course, the sipes are very complex and invisible by conventional manufacturing. And then they implement their sipes inside the mold, and they have a sculpture very new. And then, thanks to that, Michelin has improved tires' performances a lot. An example, they have produced in 2013, they launched a tire called Premier in the US. And what is the characteristic of this tire? Even if you see the tire wear indicator, if the wear is visible, the braking distance is still shorter than competitors using new tires. So it's completely crazy, and that's an incredible add value for clients.
Yeah.
But that's not only one more example.
One more, because we're running out of time. Go ahead.
Just to jump with NASA. NASA, who printed in 2013 a redesigned injector rocket engine. The result is an engine thrust multiplied by 10.
So
only
this
by
is a
redesigning
3D printed
3D printing, yes.
Injector rocket engine that goes 10 times faster than its predecessor.
Exactly.
Wow. Maybe you, Philippe, you have something to say about that.
But the additive manufacturing add value is not only for client, but also for the R&D department.
Right. Yeah.
Because the parts can be modified at any time, making the process more flexible and faster than ever before. You can test very easily all the shapes variations you need, and then without extra costs. So it's really interesting to reach the best design for the best result of add value.
Right. So you can basically go backwards through the R&D and save time and money, exponentially. So that's very important.
A last example from Michelin, just a few words, from the idea of the engineer. Of a new sculpture of tire. 2 seconds. 2 seconds.
We're going to have to stop because we're running out of time. No,
okay.
We'll get back to that one afterwards. Let me go on to you, Lionel, Diota. Now, what is, just very basic question here, but what is the value creation for customers of innovation?
Yes. Today, all the major industrial players are constantly looking for new ways to improve their performance as regards their competitive landscape and the demands of their clients. So in this context, these innovations like those we propose allow them to improve productivity, quality, traceability, security, especially in the nuclear context, and so on. So, but I think the value creation resulting from innovation has to be considered further than a mere local indicator in a global way, and not only through a very specific KPIs. So, for example, some of our clients already propose some, in addition to their own products, some additional services using the Diota solutions. For example, for maintenance processes. So we can observe that it's possible for us to create a complementary value offer using the capabilities, the capacities to innovate to their partners. In the same way, we observe our customers' ability to extend the use cases of our solutions. For example, I recently learned that Orano uses our augmented reality solutions in a way we didn't imagine ourselves. So I think it's very interesting to note that the value creation through innovation is like a wild horse. There is no limit to the innovation, and I think each player can and each player must contribute to this value creation.
Thank you. Now, one question I think is very interesting, because we do have legacy groups, we have, you know, startups here. Is how do you approach the whole innovation thing? Do you kind of create innovation and a kind of startup within your group if you're a legacy player? Do you kind of outsource it, you know, create a joint venture? So Ariane Group, you know, what's your view on that? Better to partner with newcomers like startups, or?
I think we can do and we must do both. Innovation is like kids. It's not only about having them, it's about raising them. And at the very beginning, we need to think out of the box, but when it comes to make a business, we need also to have experienced people on board to achieve performance and profit.
So don't get rid of the adults.
Huh?
Don't get rid of the parents, you're saying, yeah?
Yeah. If we come back to our best friend Elon Musk, what he did is completely different. He started a company from scratch and staffed it with people coming from outside. It works. It has worked. And I would prefer to, I think that it's better suited to our, at least European culture, to set up our own startup internally within the legacy organization. Let's say small team of very experienced people in the field, fully empowered, and also with total freedom to think out of the box and develop their ideas along a do, test, and redo philosophy, which works very well. And what is good in that? It works. A lot of people have done that before, and I think some of them call that phantom works. And what is good in that is we can inject more staff and more procedures as far as we get close to making a business out of the idea. This is for the mindsets. We can also partner with startups, and we do that. We have a lot of tools. We have innovation contests. We have innovation hangars. We can house startups or research team, partner with them. And we do both, but there is maybe an issue with the economics with startups. Because the startup is not only a mindset, it's also a different business model based on valuation more than return on sales. So on one hand, it's good because they run the company with no consideration for short-term profitability, and it's good for pouring a lot of money in the innovation pipe, but it's a very speculative game. At the end of it, you must, as a partner, as a customer, as a partner, you must bet on the right tech and on the right startup. There have been fairy tales. There will be much more fairy tales in the future, but there will be also total failures. So in average, nobody knows exactly how much valuable additional innovation will come from the system.
Yeah. Just another question to Jean-Luc, because obviously, you know, you're the other way around in a sense. You know, AddUp is created by Fives and Michelin. It's a joint venture, been going since 2016. So what's the startup state of mind there?
Okay, just
compared to what
for your
just said?
information, we don't say fives, but thieves. But it's just.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's always what we say. AddUp, we were 2 years ago 35 people, and today we are near 180. So we are growing very fast. And for AddUp, I don't know if we can say still say that we are a startup. But anyway, our state of mind is like a startup, even if we have big groups behind us. So we need to keep agility, of course, and creativity on making decisions. And because additive manufacturing technologies are moving so fast, we have to innovate and keep an eye on every innovative technology breaks. And so 3D printing competition is a long-distance race, really. And we need also to develop partnership and work with big companies like Orano that want to start the additive manufacturing adventure because it creates more examples of industrial successful additive manufacturing applications, and it's good for business and the growth of this technology.
Yep. Thank you. Now I'm going to ask you to keep your answers short because we've got not too much time. So, question for you, Lionel. Concerning Diota, if you remember, digital. What is the key, would you say, for successful implementation of disruptive innovations? It's all very well to have a disruptive innovation. You've got to actually implement it.
Yes. Yeah. So the deployment of a disruptive innovation, from my opinion, requires to drastically change the approaches classically used for the project management. So from my experience, there are 3 points to take into account to successfully perform this kind of project. First criterion, the feasibility, because if it doesn't work, it is certainly less useful. So, but the technological feasibility is not enough. Second criterion, the acceptability by the end users. For me, this is probably the fundamental prerequisite to successfully execute the diffusion of this kind of innovation, because the end users must adopt a new way to work, to access to the information, and in this context, it's fundamental to take into account their habits, their constraints, their skills. Ultimate and third criterion, the profitability, of course. The solution that we provide must deliver a tangible return on investment. So, just a minute, I'd like to emphasize the second criterion concerning the acceptability by the end users. So, it's fundamental to integrate in the process the earliest possible all the end users of this disruptive innovation, because this is the condition to the acceptance and the large diffusion of these solutions. So, just to finish, I think this kind of new project, this diffusion of disruptive innovation, must be driven by users and use cases, and not by technology. This is a classical mistake to take this project through the prism of the technology. For me, this is a mistake. First, demand.
You start with the user and work backwards, kind of thing. Very quickly, Jérôme, Navia, for innovation to thrive, what are the key factors?
No breaking news. This is agility, as you mentioned, and remain customer-centric. We transport people. The customer of our customer is a passenger. We need to focus on, again, what is the passenger experience to make it appealing, make it attractive, make it efficient, making it safe, and making it new. Transportation, first and last mile in our vehicle, whether it's a shuttle or a RoboCab, is a new experience. It's something new. Your home becomes the RoboCab. your office becomes your RoboCap, or your RoboCap becomes your office for 30 minutes. So what is key is to understand exactly what is the passenger, the customer experience. As my colleague just said earlier, let's focus on these two items, agility and user-centric.
Because it's got to be a better experience, hasn't it?
Definitely.
Now we are coming to, hopefully we'll get in one or two questions, but before we do, I'd like to turn to Philippe. What lessons can you share about implementing innovation? Which is a big question.
If there is one lesson, at least in these last 2 years of thriving experience about innovation at Orano, is that everything that the companies here explain, we can do it. The nuclear industry can do it, Orano can do it. And of course, it's sometimes the reverse of what we used to do, just customer-centric. We were really technology-oriented, technology push. But when, for example, you create an internal startup for fighting cancer, you are end-user-centric, and sometimes too much. You need also to concentrate on root technology. But yes, everything that has been explained here, and we did not invent anything about innovation, but everything that has been explained and the companies with whom we work shows that we can do it and bring that thriving innovation to the nuclear industry.
Thank you very much indeed, Philippe. Now, we've done extremely well, and we do have time for one or two questions. So I'm hoping that some of them have already come through via this text messaging system, where you send a text to that number, or you do it via the website. So if we can have a question, we do have a question. Okay, so it's to Philippe Lugarini. You referred to SpaceX as not so innovative company. I'm not quite sure you said exactly that. That's amazing, considering they invented reusable rockets and are still the only ones to do so. And if there's no innovation, why don't you go for reusable rockets? Oh, don't forget the microphone.
First, I'll put it as a joke. They didn't invent the reusable rocket. A lot of people did it before, and the Americans did it by the 60s for landing on and taking off from the moon. So I didn't say they are not innovative. They have been extremely innovative in the engineering more than in the technology. Why don't we go for reusable rockets? Very simple. There is no consistent business model for us on doing that. Easy to understand that what really matters is the market size, and more precisely, the launch rate. They intend to serve a huge market made of NASA and Air Force programs strictly reserved for American companies. We serve a much smaller market. And with the, let's say, some launch rates between 10 and 15, reusable rockets definitely do not pay off. We're preparing, building bricks for one day going for reusable rockets. We're investigating all the techniques to do that, because the one that has been developed by SpaceX is not the only one. But we'll do that if and when there is a game changer that makes it pay off.
Thank you very much for that question. Now, do we have one or two more? I think we've still got time for one or two more. Okay. Jean-Luc Laval, how do you see 3D printing impacting the nuclear industry?
Okay, in the nuclear industry, it involves, I would say, low volume. So it's not high volume like Michelin. They are producing 1 million parts per year, for example, for those sites. So I would say the additive manufacturing can help to produce, to repair parts first, but repair without, it's not with the technology with powder bed, but more with the direct energy deposition, which is another technology, but which is still 3D printing. And so you can repair parts for aviations, but also for nuclear. I would say also you can produce spare parts if you need, if the spare parts is very complex. Because if it's too simple, it's no use to it's not interesting to use 3D printing. And I would say the future, we have to invent new parts, new way to, for example, 3D printing is very interesting for heat exchanger. So to invent new heat exchanger for the nuclear plant, for example, or maybe to compact, to downsizing your different parts, maybe for spaceships, or I mean for something very small. I think 3D printing could be very interesting in that case. And maybe also for everything which is talking about radio protections. Maybe we can print something very special, and as you can program the porosity, you can really do what you want, and then maybe we can invent new things, new objects that could protect us. I don't know. We have to invent.
As you
future.
said, you've got to decide what you want first, and then go from there. Thank you very much. Just time now for maybe one or two more. Let's have a look. Next one. Next question, please. Philippe, how does Orano approach new business models and increasing customer value?
Indeed, it's not about pushing always technology, but starting from a customer need. I mean, and therefore creating value. Our motto is delivering all the value of nuclear. So indeed, we start from customer needs. We start from all the tools we have mentioned, the ecosystem, and then we have a kind of special incubator processes, not too heavy, but to make sure that all disruptive type of business models have been tested with a new idea. So there are bricks which are known from the cab industry to the aircraft, the transport industries, and there are value models. Is it a service model? Is it a product model? How do I value the service? Do I invest? Is it the customer who invests? We have all these questions we ask in our mini incubator, and I see Natalie here in the room running with her team that mini incubator. Of course, for us, the key is making sure that this idea that there are new business models needs to be known within the company. So we start with making employees knowledgeable about the fact that when you have an idea, you need to test what is the best business model to implement it. We have learned that again from coffee delivery to air transport. There is not only one business model, but there is one that works and also helps you finding the right partners, because we talk about co-development, but also helps us in finding the right partners for chemical extraction, for digital. We want to have a business models, but there are bricks that are missing. Who are the right partners we should look for? With the Airbus group, for example, we have one idea in the space industry. We then try to find the right business model, and we contacted Airbus, same thing as we contacted our partners for fighting cancer.
Well, we've had a huge amount of food for thought today on this fascinating topic of innovation, and it's amazing to see what you guys have been producing. We're really watching. I'll be watching your different groups in the coming months, because these are really cutting edge areas. So thank you very much indeed to our panel for taking part today, and thank you for tuning in to us. Thank you very much.